Welcome to Hammer Space Recording. My name is Troy Neberban, and today I'm going to talk about how we use the Synergy SYN2s in the studio. If you watch any of my videos for the last few months, you know that I am a very big fan of the Synergy system, and I use the modules all the time for live gigs and in the studio. Today I want to talk through the modules that I have in my rack at the moment and how I like to incorporate them into the recording sessions that I do. So let's head over to the rack and take a look. All right, here is the rack. A couple of things just to point out first before I go into the modules and the amp selector and all that sort of stuff. In the top corner, you'll notice the Undertone Audio GB tracker, which I mention a lot in my YouTube videos. This is the main interface that I use to get my guitar into my converters. So I plug the guitar in, it goes line level into my Matrix Studio, Avid Matrix Studio converters. This unit's really great because it's got a reamper built into it as well. So with one switch, I can either have the live guitar sound flow onto the amp rack, or I can replay a DI guitar signal from Pro Tools back through the same unit to go into the front of the amps. And it's just super transparent, sounds great, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything whenever that's in the circuit. So that's the first thing that happens when I'm using my guitar rig at all. Guitar goes straight into the Undertone Audio GB tracker, and then it links through into the amp rack or whatever's going in after that. Let's just have a look at the KHE amp selector, which I think I've mentioned this in a few of my videos before. When I was sitting up with my daughter when she was very first born a couple of years ago, I had many sleepless nights because you're not supposed to fall asleep if you're holding your child. So I would whittle away the time by watching The Simpsons on my phone at 4 a.m. or I'd be designing this dream recording amp rig in my head. So at the end of that year, I put it together just so that I could go into the studio, have everything laid out, super easy and convenient for the way that I like to work. And the first thing I wanted to get was a really great amp selector, and I'd had others in the past, but the KHE has been really great for me. Not only does it sound super transparent, but it's all MIDI selectable as well. So you can see I've got there 8 amplifiers and 4 cabinets. I can reach over to the rack and press the button to change it, or I can do the thing that I much prefer to do, which is use the Stream Deck, which is on my desk, to change the channels. So you'll see that right now. I can just flick through with some buttons and that will change the channels. The way that my rig runs is I have SoundFlow that I've used for about the same amount of time, probably about 4 years, 5 years, it's not specific to Pro Tools, but it's a piece of a macro sort of software that I use to help with my Pro Tools workflow. If you are doing any recording, I think you can get it for Logic and Ableton and all that sort of things now as well. SoundFlow doesn't just let me use the Stream Deck to change the channels on my amps, but it also allowed me to make a surface for it. So what I have is a floating window that I can bring up at any time to change the Synergy module channels or change the KHE amp selector channels. And I can do that by showing you this right here. This is what it looks like. There's probably other ways of doing it if you're not using SoundFlow or if you've got other software, but this is just the tools that I have available to me, and it works really great. So you won't be able to see the mouse as it clicks over across to the different buttons, but right now I'm just clicking across on my screen, and you can see the amp channels change, all the cabinets change, all the channels on the Synergy change. So just super easy and convenient. And I think the thing that, if you are in a recording studio, I think people that are experienced probably understand this already, but if you're just getting into it, if it's something that you're interested in, people when they come to work with you, I'll say this, most people don't really care about the technical stuff as much. They are there for you to get good sounds, offer feedback, make it sound as good as possible. But when it comes to all right, let's stop the session for 5 minutes so I can try this amp, and you go to your storeroom, you put another big amp up, you connect it in. Oh wait, is it in the right holes? Is it all working? It's really boring, and I don't want to subject clients that I work with to that side of it. I try and do all that work, as much of that work as possible, before people enter the studio. And again, that's why a rig like this is super useful, because I can have a bunch of amps connected up, swap through them, get different sounds, And yeah, like you'll see in a second, I can use the Synergy modules to complement all those really quickly. I will grab my guitar. This is my very, very cool Charvel San Dimas, I think it is, which I've had for a couple of years. It got rained on about 12 months ago, and the fretboard lifted off the guitar, which was very, very upsetting. Up until that point, it was probably the main guitar that I was using for 12 months before that. Thankfully, Tim at Williams Guitars has serviced it and fixed it up, so it's all back to sounding great again, and it sounds a little something like this. So let's have a look at what modules I have in the Synergy rack at the moment. So there are two SYN2s. They are MIDI'd together, so when I change the channel on one of them, it also makes sure that if the other one is like also in bypass mode, otherwise you're going to have a couple issues going on. The modules that I've chosen are, they do swap around a bit depending on the project that I'm working on or the way I'm feeling at any particular time. But what I've tried to have is a really good baseline of tones that, like I said, complements the other amps that I have and is useful in situations where, you know, I just want like high gain stuff and clean stuff and, you know, covers the whole range of tones really. I'm very lucky to have a lot of Synergy modules, and I've got some Salvation Audio modules. I've got a Randall module as well. So I'm not really lacking in potential tones in the studio, as well as the like 15 to 20 amps that are hanging around the studio at any one time. It's just, yeah, these four are a really good baseline if I've got, you know, new clients coming through, or if I know I've got a session where I'm not 100% certain what I'm in for. So let's take a look. So the first one I've got here is the Morgan AC module. You know, that's slightly more broken up. That was the JB on this guitar. If I go to the single coil. So like nice and chimey, nice and clear, nice and bright, but still not like sterile clean. I don't need to tell anyone about how good an AC30 sound is and how useful it can be in the studio, but that is like the perfect tone for that. And this just saves me dragging out my Vox AC30 head, which I still like. Yeah, it's just a lot more convenient. So that was the blue channel. The red channel of this module sounds like this. Again, great sound, very balanced, very clear, not overly tight, and it just fits in a mix really, really great. And works great with a lot of different guitars. Like obviously I'm using it today with this like Super Strat sort of thing, but Tellys, it works great too. And, you know, Les Pauls, depending on the tone that you're in for, that you're after, I should say. Moving on to the next module, the Friedman BEBB, and I'm going to mess up those letters at some point, I'm sure. But what I love about this module is that it allows me to have a really good and useful clean sound, as well as having a Marshall sound that I love Marshalls, and it's a tone that I'm just like naturally gravitate towards. So having that in the rack's important, but then being able to just go to something that sounds like really clean and sweet, like is super useful. And then you can go from that to this. Yeah, just super easy. I've tried some other clean modules in this rack before, and they also have their own like pros and cons as well. The OS module I think sounds really great. For like a clean sound, the TDLX module sounds really great too. I think because I just like Marshall so much, that general tone, the BE side of the BEBB module really covers it for me. So between just the AC and the BEBB module, I'm a pretty happy kind of a guy. The BE side, it just has that like nice little Marshall-y quack to it. It's not super overpowering. I don't use this in like an ultra high gain sort of mode. Like I've got the gain turned up quite a bit, as you can see in this, but it sounds great with the gain at about 12 o'clock. I will actually do a rare little move over to the rack and turn the gain down. awesome. I do have my Marshall, like headfirst modded Marshall turn on as well, which we might flick to that in a little bit as well, just show the difference between the two. But yeah, when I don't have that amp available, having something in the rack is super useful. I've turned the gain on the BE side of the BEBB module up to where about where it was before. And let's compare that to the VH4 module that I have. So you can hear immediately there's a bit more girth to that diesel sound. I find like the BE module and kind of Marshalls in general, they're such great sounds and I love playing them, but when I'm layering a lot of guitar sounds, they seem to announce themselves a bit too much. Whereas to have an amp that blends into the gigantic wall of sound, like the VH4 sound, I think works better for that. So let's have a look at the red side of the VH4. Yeah, it just beefs up that thickness like even more. It's obviously pretty saturated compared to the other one. And compared to that Marshall sound in the BE side of the BEB module. Yeah, it's a very big girthy sound. I found I've lent on that sound a lot in situations where I've maybe tried in the past 5150 sound, like a Mesa Boogie rectifier, when I want a lot of gain and a lot of like thickness and power. And again, like sometimes those other amps, they almost feel like they're too characterful, and this one is, it's not bland. I don't want to make it sound like it's characterless, but it just fits amongst the wall like very, very well. So very, very cool sound. And I mean, I've said this before, but in Australia, I think a actual diesel VH4 is $8,000, whereas one of these modules is about like $700. So, you know, pretty reasonable price difference. Let's move over to the Angle Powerball module, which the blue side on this module sounds like this. I find I don't use the blue side on this as much because I've got a similar character sound in some of the other modules already in the rack. But it's just like kind of nice to have there, I suppose. My preferred sound is the red channel on this, which sounds like this. Which is big and hairy and thick. I've got one client in particular who I really struggled to get the right sound with him. And when we put that sound up, all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, that's it. You need the angle thing. Of all the modules that I've tried, this was the one that surprised me the most, where I didn't really think I'd like it that much because I've always associated Angle and the Powerball in particular with being a metal amp. So maybe I thought it'd be really tight and aggressive and maybe overly quacky sounding and better for drop tuning. But I think it just sounds really big and good and just like lots of distortion on it. Like that sounds like chuggy without making me, you know, feel like I'm playing a genre of music that I don't really understand. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is I'm running these Synergy modules through a Fryette 292 power amp. So shout out to my buddy Richo for leaving this with me for the last little while. And I think it adds something to these modules. Like I really love the power amp in the SYN2 IR and having the structure switches on those and the reactance knob as well. But I think outside of that, the 292 just pairs with all these modules so well. Moving on from the Synergy modules, I just wanted to point out that I do have the ability to have 7 other amps connected into this KHE amp selector, as well as, you know, a bunch of other cabinets. Right now we're listening to my Marshall V30 cabinet, which I've used for most of my YouTube videos, but I can flick over very quickly to my Mesa Boogie oversized Recto cabinet. Very different sounds, as you can hear. But what I've got set up at the moment is on amps channel 3. If I select amp 3, amplifier 3, I've got my 5150 script. And if I select amp 4, it's my vintage Marshall. So we can just have a quick listen to that and see what that sounds like as well. Maybe I'll go to the first channel of the diesel VH4 module as well, just to reference. So this is the blue channel of the VH4. This is the 5150 script. This is the Marshall. VH4. BE side of the BEBB. Marshall. 5150. Red side of the VH4. Yeah, lots of options there. And this is another thing that I find really useful about the Synergy modules is I don't want to just have one thing and throw out all the rest of my collection of amps, because I just like find them really fun to play with and experiment with. And like I said, there's about 15 to 20 amps floating around the studio at any one time. So this allows me to bring those in if I want to record with them, or if a client of mine has a specific head that they want to use for their project, I can have that up on a switch. And then if we just need a like AC30 part for one section of a song, turn the Synergy stuff on, bang, there's the AC30 sound. Or let's add higher gain sound to a like a matchless amp that might come through the studio. Well, I can load up the Powerball module. I don't know if those situations are going to happen that often, but you never know in the studio, do you? So that's how I use Synergy modules in the studio. I do love this setup. I love that I can sit in this exact spot right between my speakers, like I'm talking to you right now, and just quickly flick onto different sounds as I'm like working with a new client or even an old client, whoever it might be. As I'm sitting here just playing for my own enjoyment, I don't have to really go over the rack so much. I can just bang, 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 quickly trial stuff out and enjoy myself. So yeah, this whole rig, it's kind of similar to, I guess, if you were to have some sort of modeler, or if it's like a Kemper or a Fractal or anything like that. It's just that rather than use like presets, they're like real amps and real sounds, and there's real air moving, which when I'm in the studio with a band, I just find that more inspiring and more interesting. I still use the digital stuff all the time, and there's places where like I'll use my like Tonex sounds or use Kemper sounds or whatever it is, depending on the situation. But the amp rack in its current setup is like my absolute preferred method of recording, and I use that most of the time. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for checking out another video of mine. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you like my guitar sounds, you might like my Tonex captures that are on my website, hammerspacerecording.com. And other than that, I'll see you on the next video. Peace.